Video, we're going to go over users and roles and how they function, how they're set up, and what attributes you can assign to each users and roles so you can use the system the way you want. So to get the users and roles, we go to the Personal and Admin menu, go down to User Access Management, and then over to Users. With inside Users, you'll get the user listing page. There are a couple ways you can search for users. You can actually search by what role they're in. So if you wanted to see who was in VP of Sales, you can go through and see what roles are assigned to. You can also do based on a location. If you want to only see users in a certain location, you can do that. And then finally, you can do text. So if you want to search for a user with some sort of text, in either user ID, personal email, phone number, any of that, you would do a search on that and you get all the users. If you see here, these 3 users have my email address. This user has my name. So if we're going to go inside a user, so what I want to do is use basically a counter user. If we search our counter users, we'll go right here. Now we're inside the user listing page. Now inside the user page is a bunch of detailed information and a bunch of fields you can go through and set certain parameters for this particular user throughout the system. The first section is basically their login and role. So you would assign a username to that user. You would obviously assign a password. If we were in edit mode, you could just change the password, or you can change it here if you have admin privileges. You can assign a barcode if an employee has a badge or some other item that they want to use to scan a barcode to automatically log into the system as this role. You can assign that there and whether or not the barcode is accepted. Middle name, you report to, so you can actually say who this user reports to as a particular user. And then finally, the most important thing is which role that user is going to be assigned to. The role will control the permissions throughout the system and what things they can and can't see. This is just basically set up for an individual user. Inside a user, if I change it to edit role, inside of the user you can see all the things that we can assign. Whether or not they're able to see the delivery module, schedule deliveries, see the delivery, assign deliveries, things along that nature. Their default calendar view, sound notifications, whether or not if you receive a web order you want to hear a sound notification, or finalize PO for a particular master account. Some of the most important fields though are your default cursor field inside your product details. So do you want it when you're in an SO? Do you want to default the barcode, line code, which is department, product number, or product name? We set these to product number. Where these are, if I switch over up top to orders and quotes, this would be whether or not I want it to default to the product field, or if you were showing the barcode field or the department field or description, which one do you want to set up as your default after you enter your account up here? Where does it default to? Default setting is for product number, but if you want to use something different, you can. The printing method these are going to be set by the admin. They're going to be the same for everybody, and this will be your setting you have. Whether or not they have master account rename authority, default register. If you have a register that this user always uses or defaults to, or if you have one register for the whole branch, you would set it here. Print template by server. This would be if you want to take your store transfer and automatically print it to the other locations using a template, it will do that. Do you allow the user to change their sound notifications that you assign to them? You can. Whether or not you show their time card tab or their groups that they're assigned to, you would show that here. Event user color. So when we use particular parts in the calendar, if we want to assign a color to this user, we would just choose the color selector, go through, select the color we like, and then that will be that user's color when they're scheduled throughout the system. If they are a salesperson, you would select yes. This would allow them to be commissioned, use commission reports, things of that nature. Online orders notification. Again, do you want to be notified if you get an online order received if you're using that capability? Sound notification for store transfers. Again, just a yes/no setting for the sounds that they can hear. Over store transfer received. So in other words, if you received more than you put on a store transfer, do you want to be notified? You can do that here. When you go into a sales order, what's your default transaction type? Normal sale. These are all the transaction types you set up in your custom settings, and it's just going to be which kind of transactions they normally do. So, for example, most people would just put normal sale. Your default location, you put that in here. Display master account location restriction.pos. So, do you restrict this person to only use master accounts that are assigned to this location? or can they use any location's master accounts? You would set this to whether or not they can see all or just their current location. Sale master accounts, this is the shortcut button. So when you're up here, this little shortcut, these right here, default accounts, these would be the default accounts you can set for this person, so when they hit that button, that's the accounts they can choose from. Or if it's just one in this case, it would automatically default to that. Do you want to push their received on accounts to end of day? So if somebody receives a payment from a customer, a counter person, do you want that to push to the end of the day for the person who reconciles the registers or themselves? You want to say yes to this in most cases. Do you want to view the product current cost or alternate cost on the point of sale? Again, one of the things that we know in the system is the information bar right here. So this little eye, when you click it, will tell you what this setting does. Your report default page, if they have the reports, do you want them to see the report list in total or just their favorites? This normal setting is to favorite. Email, we're always going to set to PDF. We can do it to HTML, but they would need a login in order to do that. Do you want to show the inbound store transfer notification? The PPV, this is basically going to be used for people using warehouse management, which we'll cover in a different video. So purchase part verification, we're not going to go into those here. So that's all these next few settings. Do you want to allow the user to change their photograph that's assigned to them? Do you want them to show, if you're using Timekeeper, you would check this on. And then can they see the homepage components tab, which is down at the bottom, and can they choose from it? Again, PPL. Down here, personal information. If you want to put any personal information related to the employee, you can. Just realize that you put this information in. Whoever has access to the user module will be allowed to see it. Down here, you have one of the things, you have the employee benefits information. You can do how we're going to track their time if we want to track their time. Log in only with an automatic log out. Log in and clock in only. So in other words, when they log in, they would have to clock in. Clock in only, which would just be using the module simply as a timestamp. So if you have warehouse users or things like that that aren't going to be using the system, but you just want them to clock in and clock out to track their time, you would use clock in only. And then log in, clock in detail would be more for your installed sales employees. They would log in and then say what tasks they are actually performing, and we would give a detailed report as to what tasks they worked on during that time period. Again, the other things you can put in here are related to personal. Their photograph will go here. Here's where you can assign sounds if you wanted to for online web orders and for the online store transfers. Your homepage components. So the homepage is accessed in any module of the system by hitting your company's logo. So if I hit the logo, I would come up to the homepage. The homepage has a couple things. First, it has a bunch of graphs that you can see. In addition, it has our alerts, report alerts. You can do other types of things like my top 10 SOs, outstanding POs. This can be a landing page or a start page for somebody when they come in, so they can go through and see these type of alerts. Alerts and other things on the dashboard we will cover in a different video. However, when we're going through to assign which ones a particular user can see, we would go through and either do the show or hide, and they would show or hide that on the homepage dashboard. The only other additional things would be for buyout received, which is a purchase order tied to a sales order, or a non-stock buyout, a non-stock received. We can send email alerts to this user. Even though we have them hidden, we can still select yes to get an alert via email that their non-stock order has been received or their buyout has been received. Down in the mail server settings, if they were going to use us as a webmail client and tie it into Liftoff, this is where they would put all their information related to their personal email or their company email that they wanted to use. Once you've created a user with all the defaults you want, you can actually save that. So our first advice is to go through and set up a user with all the defaults that you want, especially in the more information area, the defaults you want to set up basically for everybody or a particular type. Then you would save that user. Excuse me. And then once we have the user saved, when we go back into users, we can do a couple of things. So for this, I want to go see who I have in Counter again. I do my search. Now we can do a couple things. One is I can click this button right here and go into edit them. I can delete them at this time. Or another simple thing is once we create one user, we can go ahead and take that counter person we had created and just duplicate. And now what it brings up in a edit mode, a complete copy of the one you created, and you can go through and change all the things that need to be changed for this particular user and then save it. So it's a quick way of, once you set up a default, to go ahead and add additional users going through. So you can have 2 or 3 or 4, as many template users as you want. You can actually create a roll call template that doesn't do anything but assigns a particular type of users. Then you can just copy that user profile and add the individual's information as well for a quick edit. So once we are done creating our user, we want to have roles that we can assign that user to. Roles are accessed, again, by going to the personal and admin page, users and access management, and you can go right to roles. Or if you were already on the user page, if you notice we had a side menu here that have users and roles in it as well. Roles basically control what you're able to see throughout the system. Each role has different abilities. So if we were going to go into, say, a counter role, what you can see within a counter role is we have all of our modules. Currently, at the time of this video, as I scroll down, we have 73 different types of modules. In addition to that, you can say for each module whether the user or the role has the ability to create or edit within that module, to view that module, or to have delete privileges within that module. Our suggestion is not to give anybody but your admin delete ability. Inside each module then, on certain modules, for example like master accounts, they have view permissions, but we want to hide certain fields within that module. When you go ahead and put an X next to this, that field disappears from the active fields within the system. So it won't just be a blank area. I'm sorry, it won't just say status code notes with the blank or unable to edit. Status code notes will not appear within the master accounts when viewing within this role. So this is a good place to go when you have users that say, I can't see something, I'm not able to do something. Usually it goes back to permissions within their roles. The other place to look after roles is to go into permissions for that role within custom settings, and custom settings we'll go through in a different video. So you would go through each role and give them the abilities that you want. Suggestion is to start with a low role, i.e. maybe a warehouseman or a driver, and a high role, your president or your admin, your site admin, or somebody along those lines. And then again, as we go through and mark all the things they can and can't see within each type of thing or the permission they have, we can then duplicate this role again. It'll create a complete copy as is. You rename the role, and once you're done with the role, you can go through and add or take away whatever modules, add the permissions you want, whether you want to give them create or edit within certain modules, or allow them the ability to do certain fields within the modules. One of the things to know is whether or not they are able to use some of the tools within those modules. For example, when we are in the product module, are they able to import, export, are they able to print labels, or mass manage update their master price list? These tools will not show as buttons on top of the product screen. So, for example, if we go to the product screen, you see up here we have certain things. The ability to import and export, mass update your MPL. All of those are controlled here, and whether or not they're able to do those things will be X or O. I'm signed in as a different role, so my role has the ability to do that, but if my role did not have the ability, they would not see any of the mass updates. The import and export would be grayed out, so they would not be able to do it, and then the print labels, as you go to certain areas within, would not be shown as well. Once you have all your roles created, you now have the ability to go throughout the system and use it the way you want. This is a unique way to go through and customize the system to work however you want each individual to use it. One thing to note about roles is a user can only be assigned to one role. So if you have a role that covers 10 employees and the 11th employee in there has something a little different than the other 10, but the majority of his work is with the other 10, create a new role just for that employee and give him whatever permissions you want. We don't have the ability to allow someone to be within 5 different roles and have all the permissions within those. Each individual is assigned to one role, and that one role controls everything they do. That's our video for users and roles. If you have any further questions, please contact your salesman or support. Thank you.